Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
Charlie was a good man. He was not wild or bad, but life had become too hard for him. Too much work, too many rules, and no fun. It was like standing at the edge of a big hole, ready to fall. One warm evening in autumn, Charlie came home. He had been pushed to his limit by life. He stepped off the train without buying a newspaper because his wife said it was a waste of money. He walked the same road home, like he had done thousands of times. He entered the house quietly so he wouldn't wake the baby. He wiped his boots, greeted his wife, washed his hands in cold water because the hot water was saved for the baby, and sat down to another cold dinner. His wife said she was tired but didn't mind. "One must expect to be tired," she said. Charlie kept eating. Inside, he felt restless. "I think you shouldn't buy a new suit," his wife said. "Maud needs to go to a better school. You can get your old suit fixed instead." Charlie tried to speak, but she continued, "We shouldn't think of ourselves." "I never do," Charlie said quietly. "We should also give some money to the parish magazine," she added. "The vicar is asking for more donations." Charlie nodded, though he really wanted to know the football scores from the evening paper. His wife served dessert carefully, giving just the right amount of jam. Then she said, "The garden gate needs fixing." "I'll fix it on Saturday," Charlie replied. "And we should invite Uncle Henry and Aunt over soon. They will expect it," she added. Charlie sighed and said, "Life is full of musts. Must do this, must do that." His wife looked upset. "People can't always do what they want, Charlie," she said. "Life is not for fun. We have duties. That's why life is given to us." Charlie looked at the table and asked, "Why is life given to us?" He felt like a boy again, dreaming while looking at the tablecloth. "To do our duty," his wife said gently but firmly. After dinner, Charlie helped her wash the dishes. Then he asked, "Would you like to go for a short walk?" She shook her head. "I can't leave the children," she said. "They're asleep," Charlie said. "Maud is 12. She can watch them for half an hour." But she shook her head again. "I'm not the kind of woman who leaves her house and children at night," she said. Charlie sighed and picked up his hat. He played with it in his hands, feeling a sudden urge to cry. Before he could leave, his wife said, "Don't ruin your hat. It won't last long if you do that." Charlie left the house. He knew other men who felt lost like him. They would leave their homes, swear, and go to the club to play games. That would help them feel better. But for Charlie, it wasn't that easy. He felt trapped, like he was standing at the edge of a deep, misty hole. He was small, poor, tired, and he knew it. He hated his wife and children, though it hurt him to admit it. His life wasn't supposed to be this way. When he married, his wife was young, with soft curls and a gentle smile. He dreamed of happy days, laughter, and little adventures like trips to parks or restaurants. But soon, he realized he had married someone like his strict, religious mother. All his dreams of joy faded away. Charlie walked down the road, feeling hot and confused. He thought about babies, lively, happy babies who laughed and made mischief. But his wife didn't want babies like that. Her babies learned strict rules and serious words first. Charlie didn't want 3 children because they couldn't afford it. But when he tried to talk to his wife, she made him feel guilty. She always acted like she was better than him. Now, Charlie realized there were women who liked being martyrs. They enjoyed making others unhappy just to feel righteous. And there were many men like him, stuck, unhappy, and belittled by such wives. Lost in thought, Charlie walked farther, turning corners into busier streets. Then he saw Kitty. Kitty was colorful and young, with a soft, happy look. She didn't seem to care about life's problems. She smiled at him, and something inside Charlie shifted. The mist in his mind cleared, and he felt drawn to her joy. He had some money with him from payday, just enough for a simple outing. Kitty didn't mind traveling 3rd class, and he took her to the city. They shared coffee and sandwiches at a small cafe. Later, she invited him to her tiny flat. It was cozy, full of small comforts Charlie had never known. She leaned against him, talking about her life and how she ended up in his suburb. Kitty didn't hide who she was or what she did. Instead, she made it seem exciting and full of adventure. Charlie felt young again, like the world was full of possibilities. He promised to visit her again the next day. When Charlie got home, he moved quietly so he wouldn't wake the baby. He slipped into bed, hoping to hold on to the enchantment of the evening. But his wife was awake. "Where have you been, Charlie?" she asked. "At the club," he whispered, watching a billiard match. Charlie's wife sighed deeply. "Charlie," she said, "you should think more about us." "Maudie asked me, is Daddy still out?" She said, "He shouldn't leave you alone, Mama." "She's such a sweet child, Charlie." Children often say things that remind us to do better. The next morning, Charlie left with a suitcase. He told his wife it had an old suit to be fixed, but it was full of his things. His wife was busy with the baby, so Maud, looking smug, saw him off. That evening, he didn't return. On the train, he wrote his wife a letter explaining his decision, but he didn't give her an address. Charlie took all the money from their savings, canceled his life insurance, and ended up with £160. After work, he went to Kitty's flat. Kitty was fun and lively. She didn't mind that Charlie didn't have much money. Life with her was simple and happy. He spent less on his lunches so he could buy chocolates for Kitty instead of giving money to the church. Kitty made him laugh, taught him to dance, and brought him joy. One day, he bought her a beautiful dress, and she hugged him happily. She didn't tell him to save the money or feel guilty. Instead, she said sweetly, "Let's buy the dress." Kitty knew Charlie couldn't afford her forever, but she made the most of their time together. Meanwhile, Charlie's wife stayed busy, sewing Maud's old dress into a new one for their second child. She told her visiting Uncle Henry and Aunt what had happened. "Charlie left me for an immoral woman," she said calmly. Her aunt and uncle were shocked. "Look at her," said Aunt, watching her sew. "So hardworking, and he leaves her." "He must be naturally bad," said Uncle Henry. Charlie's wife spoke wisely. "I've thought about it. For the children's sake, I won't report him to his job. Besides, It's my duty to forgive him." "You're so good," Aunt murmured. "Yes," said Uncle Henry, "you're right. He still sends money, and you need that for the children. He'll come back soon, ashamed of himself." "I hope he feels terrible when he remembers his sweet children," said Aunt. While his wife and her family planned for his return, Charlie was happy with Kitty. But the 160 pounds was running out. After almost 2 months, Charlie felt something was wrong. When he was at work, he didn't know what Kitty did all day. He was afraid to ask. Kitty was still sweet to him, except for little arguments that made her kindness feel even better later. But then, she started acting distant. One night, she said she had plans for dinner and dancing at the Savoy. Charlie knew it was the end. That night, Charlie waited for her. He warmed the flat, set out cakes and wine, and prepared everything perfectly for her return. But he knew. At dawn, Kitty came back with another man. Charlie stood frozen as the man kissed Kitty and left. When they were alone, Kitty spoke calmly. "Charlie, this can't go on. You don't have the money to keep me, and I have to think of myself. Let's part as friends." Charlie was heartbroken. "Part?" he whispered. "Yes," Kitty said gently. "You've been so good to me, Charlie, but it's time. I'll pack your things while you're at work tomorrow. Let's not fight, okay?" Charlie kissed her goodbye, tears in his heart. That evening, instead of going elsewhere, Charlie returned to the flat. He let himself in quietly and waited in the dark. He heard Kitty in her room, singing, "I'm forever blowing bubbles." Charlie imagined her fixing her makeup, just as she always did. For a moment, he felt peaceful. But then the doorbell rang. Kitty rushed to answer it. The man from the night before came in and kissed her. Something snapped in Charlie. He stepped out from the shadows, full of anger and strength, and threw himself at the man. For the first time in his life, Charlie fought for his love, his pride, and his pain. Kitty did not scream. She knew it was better to stay calm. "Oh, Charlie," she whispered, "please leave. Don't make trouble here. Be good and go." The man with her said, "He will leave." The man, strong and young, pushed Charlie out. Then, on the stairs, he threw Charlie down. Charlie fell hard on the stone steps. He felt his back break. Kitty looked down at him, crying softly. "Charlie, please go. If you love me, leave now. This is too much." Charlie loved her. Through his pain, he said to the man, "My back is broken. Take me outside and tell the porter I'm drunk. Don't let anyone see." The man carried him down carefully, nervous and mumbling, "I didn't mean this. I don't want trouble. I'm sorry." He put Charlie down outside, leaned him against a railing, and disappeared. A taxi driver later found Charlie and called for help. The police took him to the hospital. At the hospital, they found his wife's address in his pocket. She was told early the next morning. Calmly, she called Uncle Henry and Aunt. "Well, what did we say?" Uncle Henry declared, "Charlie is coming back home, sorry and thankful. We'll set him straight." Charlie's wife went to do her duty, as always. But early that morning, Charlie knew his time was short. He asked the nurse to call Kitty and tell her to come quickly. Kitty, shaky but kind, promised to come. Charlie then asked the nurse softly, "If I die when she's here, can you cover my face? I don't want her to see anything scary." When Kitty arrived, she was wearing the wool dress Charlie had bought for her. She stood by his bed, trembling. "Oh, Charlie," she said, her voice breaking. "Kitty," Charlie whispered, "sing Bubbles for me." The nurse looked at Kitty firmly. Kitty began to sing, "I'm forever blowing bubbles." Her voice shook, but she sang as Charlie smiled faintly. Then Charlie's wife arrived, full of forgiveness, just a moment too late. She saw Kitty standing by the bed and stared. The nurse said gently, "He just wanted a song."